you guys, it's Peter, and I'm back. Of course I'm back. I'm YouTube famous now. And now that I'm YouTube famous, you guys want me to do these story times, which is great, but sometimes the stories that people ask for are highly emotional. And for me, I started this channel because I wanted my journey and what I do on here to be highly cathartic, meaning that I could look back on it and with no regrets and know that I spoke my truth and I told my story and I did on here what I wanted to do. And so I've been actually thinking a lot about my mom today and advice that my mom would have given me and, you know, on doing my channel and how to present myself and interactions with others and things like that. My mother was a very wise person, but sometimes didn't take her own wisdom. And some of the things that she taught me were things like, let's say, you know, to live your life to the fullest because we're on borrowed time as it is. My mother always said we're on borrowed time as it is. She said it to me, I mean, like almost every time I saw her, you know, she would say to me like, I would say, I want to write a book. And she'd say, well, you better write it now. I've been writing my book for 10 years, which is interesting because when my mom passed away, I actually found that she had written an entire manuscript to Mick Jagger, who she was a huge fan. It was called Waiting on a Friend, Dear Mick Jagger. And it was basically about a woman coming into the world. It was a nonfiction book about her going through the ages from 10 to 18 to 28 to 38 to 48 and, you know, who she became over time. And my mother was generous enough from the time that she was 18 to start journaling. And I have every journal that my mother ever wrote, and she left it all for me. She specifically let me know that she left these journals for me so that I would have a documentation of her life. When my mom passed away and I went to her house, I knew where the journals were, and she had been sick for 2 months previous to that in the hospital. And I had never gone to her house and looked for the journals, and I found them that night after my mom passed away, and I had a friend with me. And my friend at the time was older. She was, I think, like 60. And I said to her, I said, this is just overwhelming. I mean, what I just held up to you is probably like a tenth of what I have. And I said, this is just, it's too much. It's overwhelming. And my friend said to me, that's the greatest gift you could ever leave your child is a documentation of your life, of every thought you ever had. And today I'm very blessed to have that. I read through it and, you know, even like just in preparing this video, which I actually prepared a video. Can you believe it? Because see, I got my Starbucks, that's my preparation. No, but I actually kind of went through some things because I wanted to talk about my mom's passing and what I learned from that. And I'm going to get very emotional in this video. I'm just going to tell you, whenever I talk about my mom, I get very emotional. It's interesting because I believe that my mom's life was done. I think it was complete. I don't have any regrets in my relationship with my mom. She and I had an amazing relationship, especially the last 5 years of her life. I'm glad that there is nothing unsaid, nothing undone with my mother. I mean, I look back on that relationship and it's just exactly how I would have wanted it to go at the end. So for me, I feel very blessed with that. I have a very close friend of mine whose mother suicided. She didn't have any closure to that relationship. I feel like to some extent it still haunts her today and it kind of breaks my heart for her. I just can't even imagine going through that, or when somebody has a family member that dies in a car accident or just from a heart attack. I think it's very difficult, you know, and that was not my story. I had a last conversation with my mother where I got to ask her any questions that I wanted to have or know. So it was just, you know, the way that my mother's passing went. And I say passing, not died, because for me, and this is just my belief, I believe that we pass on from one world to the next. And one of the things I'll talk about in here, because my mom really believed it, was that we're just, as Bob Dylan says, a suit of soul. And so this is just a bag. The skin is just all drag, and underneath it is what we carry on from world to world to world. I believe that. I believe that we have a purpose for why we're here. My mother very much gravitated right in between Buddhism and Christianity. She believed in a lot of both. And so she was a very spiritual woman. She carried it in everything that she did. My mother allowed no negativity into her house, into her life. Although at times she could be kind of a negative person. She really struggled with it, I think. But she would, like, if I came in here and I was like, "Arr, arr, arr," she'd say, take it outside. I don't want it in my house. I don't want any negativity in my house. And so I'm so, so blessed for that. And I was thinking a lot about that today in just the culture of negativity and how to respond. And my mother would say, rise above it. She would just say, rise above it. You know, you stand behind what you do and you rise above it. You don't lower yourself to those standards. You just don't. I mean, like, you've known better. And she would always say things like, she was very proud on how she parented me. My dad was very proud on how they parented me too, because they very decisively and in a calculated way chose like where I went to school and like morals that I had. And I can remember like when all of the neighborhood kids and me got busted drinking and smoking cigarettes. And my parents were divorced at the time, but they very much, even though they did not like each other, parented together. And I remember that I remember sitting on the stairs, and I was probably like 7 or 8 at the time. And my dad said to me, you know, all the other kids had told on me and said it was, I got my mom's beer and I got my mom's cigarettes, and so I was the one that did it. And they all got out of it. And I remember my dad said to me about this one person, he was like, you know, he's gonna get new hockey equipment and all this kind of stuff for telling a lie, but you came home and we asked you if you did it and you cried and you were honest about it and you told the truth. So, you know, I'm sorry that we have to, you know, punish you for that and that you can't go out with your friends for the next couple weeks. But at least you'll learn the lesson that, you know, the truth is more important at the end of the day. And I believe that to this day, okay? The other thing I believe that my father taught me from a very young age is that you always stick up for anybody that is being attacked, okay? So no matter who that is, whatever your thing is that you have to do, you know, that you just don't stand by and allow something negative to go on in the world. And I'm not gonna do that to this day. Both of my parents taught me that. My mother would fight for anybody. I mean, anybody, and I've talked on here about that before. What was interesting, and I wanted to show you 2 pictures actually. This was the picture that we picked for my mom's funeral. And the reason that I picked the picture, this was one of the last pictures I ever took of her, and it was in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and this is actually on Christmas morning of 2007. And we had got caught up in the mountains. We had gone to the casino in Cherokee, and we got caught in the mountains and on this ice storm, and we couldn't get down. So this is actually right as we got to the bottom of the mountain, and my mom said, pull over, I want to get out. And she got out, and she looked over the mountains. I will never forget this. And she looked over the mountains, and she held her hands up, and she said, this is God. And to me, like to this day, like when I see nature or the wind or music and as I'm driving, like to me, that is God. That is the feeling of any kind of God that there possibly could be out there. Whatever your belief is, to me, that's just what it is to me. My favorite picture of my mother ever is when she is on Lake Michigan in Chicago. And in this picture, I'm about 1 year old. I always remember my mom with very, very long hair. But in telling this, I wanted to say the reason why I'm remembering my mom today, and of course I'm going to whip out To Kill a Mockingbird, is because it's like 80 degrees outside, and it's beautiful blue skies, and the birds are everywhere. And so I was thinking about the last chapter of To Kill a Mockingbird, and you guys, I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm going to lose my shit while I'm reading this. And the last chapter of To Kill a Mockingbird starts like this. The weather was unusually warm for the last day of October. We didn't even need jackets. The wind was growing stronger, and Jim said it might be raining before we got home. There was no moon. The streetlight on the corner cast sharp shadows on the Radley house. I heard Jim laugh softly. Bet nobody harms them tonight, he said. Jim was carrying my ham costume rather awkwardly, as it was hard to hold. I thought it gallant of him to do. High above us in the darkness, a solitary mocker poured out his repertoire in blissful unawareness of whose tree he sat in, plunging from the shrill key of the sunflower bird to the irascible quack of the blue jay, to the sad lament of poor Will, poor Will, poor Will. And I was thinking about that today because it's like even though it's November, it's such like an October day like that. We don't have many October days like that. And when I have moments like that that remind me of something, I always feel like they're gifts from my mother. And so I want to read something that she gave me because this is, I think like I want my videos to start being, of course, still funny and whatever, but some kind of like endearing lesson to come through at the end. Very much like Roseanne, where you laugh and you cry, but at the end of the episode, it's like you always kind of learn something. And it's interesting because as I was going through my mom's journals today, I found my high school journal because I kept a journal in high school. I do not keep a journal anymore. I don't need people knowing all of my secrets of the world. And besides, I have YouTube for that. And so Thursday, January 11th of 1990, I was a senior. I wrote, I think it was actually an assignment for a class. What will my life be like? What will my life be like in 20 years? So here we are, 20 years later. And I haven't read this, so I don't know what it says. In 20 years, my life will be so different from this hell I'm living, kind of from Les Miserables. So funny. I have really thought about this so many times. I don't know what I will be like in 20 years. I hope I am successful, mentally if not economically. I hope I have met someone and am someone. You notice I don't say boy or girl. And met someone and am happy and maybe in love. I hope I am in control of my life and that I will be with the people I love. There is really nothing more I want. Peace sign, see? And you know what's interesting about that is, like, I really, like, I have that today. I mean, how awesome is that, right? And, so anyway, I was going through this, and my mother had, like, tons of her journals are just like, look, scraps of paper. I mean, just ridiculous scraps of paper. So, here, I'm, like, pulling this over here. What does this say? So anyway, oh my God. I at one point thought I was going to write a book and do all these journal entries, and I thought, I can't do that. This is about my mom's 49th birthday. But on here, I can't, she doesn't have a date on this one. But she says on here, questions for new life strategy. And this may come from a book, I don't know. But this is all like right after September 11th happened. So it must have been like within the week or two after September 11th, or like 9/11 happened. And she says on here, she goes, what did you think was important before 9/11? And then she said, what were you neglecting before 9/11? Yourself, others, who in your life? What do you pledge to do now that things have changed? And I think what she's implying, and she would always ask herself these questions, like, when you have this major life thing that happens to you, like starting a YouTube channel, or a mother passing away, or a dog passing away, or an illness, or finding out that you have cancer, it's like a wake-up call of life, right? And it's like, okay, what now? What are you gonna do now with your life? Like, you're given this great opportunity to see life in a different way. It's a wake-up call. And, you know, I think a lot of times we get very much into the negativity of those wake-up calls. You know, somebody talking negatively about us, somebody like, you know, raking us across the coals, an illness, you know, whatever the issue may be, a financial burden. But, you know, you can take those opportunities as a wake-up call and go, okay, 2 seconds before that happened, I had no idea what my life was like. Now I'm looking at my life differently. And so that's why I picked this one to read today. She said, what would be left undone or unsaid if today was your last day, or if someone that you loved died today? And I think that's like a really important question, because like I said at the beginning of this, I don't look back on my relationship with my mom and miss anything, you know? What must you do behaviorally now to make your new life? What do you want your new life to look like? And she said, it's not enough just to say, I get it, right? Because I say that a lot on here. Like say, I get, like, oh my God, like this, oh, I get it, like shit. Like, I get it. Like, life is quick. Like, when you're standing at a funeral, do you really get it? That could be you. Like, I really got it. Like, standing there with my mom holding her hand because she so believed that we're just a suit of soul. Like, I can remember holding her hand and thinking to myself, we're born, we live, we die, and what we put in the middle of it is ours. Alone. Alone. Like, that's ours. And she taught me that through her death. You know, she said on here, what was left unsaid? 30 seconds to, you know, like, if you had 30 seconds to tell somebody what you want to tell them, if it was the last 30 seconds of your entire life, what would you say? What would be important to you? How would you want to look back on your life and remember it? How would you want to look back on your life and, you know, really remember what it was about? Are you living the life that you want to be remembered for living? And one of my favorite actual quotes, and I'm going to pull it up here right now if I can get into my phone. My phone has been acting crazy all day long. Is it's a quote from an Avicii song, which is The Nights by Avicii, because you guys know I love EDM. And it says, one day you'll leave this world behind, so live a life you will remember. And it's a quote that he says, my dad told me this in there. I should get the exact quote. You guys know, like, this is where I get real emotional, because my dad has said things to me like that all my life. My dad has said to me, you know, like, life is really, really short. And I remember at my mom's funeral, my dad came in, and my dad spoke at my mom's funeral. And I think, like, for 30 years, all she really wanted was reconciliation with him. And I'll never forget, like, before my mom passed away, like that day, my dad went in the hospital and he told everybody to leave, and he went in the hospital room alone, and he was in there for an hour. And I asked him, like, a year later, I said, what did you say to Mom when you went in there that day? And he just said, you know, I loved you and I'm sorry. And I thought, oh my God, 30 years this woman waited to hear that. 30 years. You made somebody wait to say, I'm sorry. It's so powerful, you know? So to anybody out there that I have hurt in any kind of way, I apologize. That has never been my intention. My intention was to make the world a happier, funnier place. I don't want to wait until somebody has 30 seconds left to live to make it right. And I was looking through my mom's journals, and I came to her very, very last journal entry that she wrote on this journal, A Woman's Journey, which she didn't even make very far. Her last journal entry is on January 18th of the year that she passed away, and right after that she went into the hospital, and then she went into a coma. And it's all about the movie Passage to India, which she absolutely loved. And in here she says, we are all part of the pattern of life. Do not ignore it. And I think for me, that's the greatest lesson I've ever learned from my mom, that all of us are interconnected. We're all part of this greater pattern. You know, whether it's somebody Snapchatting me about their day, or a little emoji, or somebody saying something negative about me, or somebody saying something positive about me, or Trisha Paytas is calling me up and we're talking for 2 hours on the phone, or, you know, like Alex brings me home a cookie from work, or my dogs are running around outside, or somebody passes away, or somebody's born. It's all part of this beautiful pattern of life. And I feel so blessed to have had the opportunity. So thank you, and I love you.